Welcome to the Redemption Life Podcast, a resource from Redemption Church, Twin Cities. Through these conversations, we aim to explore what it looks like to live a redeemed life, rooted in the gospel, formed by Scripture, and shaped in community. You can find more information about our church at redemptiontc.com. But in the meantime, we hope that this resource encourages you and helps you to know and follow Jesus.
Great. Ready? Okay. Was that big enough?
Give us your biggest clap.
Like overhead.
Over your head.
Like this?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's as big as I can go. All right. Well, we are back for another episode of the Redemption Life Podcast. I am Jennifer, and I'm here with two of my good friends, Kaylie and Ellen. Kaylie, you have not been on the podcast before,
That's
so
true.
I would love for you to introduce yourself and who calls you mom.
Yeah, so I'm Kaylie, and I am a part of our kids ministry. So I get to lead all our kids ministry, and who calls me mom is Nora. So she is, how old? 14 months. And so she is so fun. And then I'm married to Joey. And so that's our little family.
Awesome. Ellen, who are you and who calls you mom?
I am Ellen, and I volunteer with the church doing some of the moms ministry and women's ministry. Got to lead a Bible study this summer. I have a 13-year-old daughter named Sophia and an almost 12-year-old son named Oliver, who both call me mom, and then I'm married to Joel.
Love it. Love it. And if you want to learn more about Ellen, you can go back to our first episode. We did a lot of unpacking of who we are on that one. And I'm Jennifer. I'm on staff here at Redemption, and I have two 17-year-olds, twins, Colton and Rylan, that are in their senior year of high school. And then I also have a 27-year-old who is married and expecting his first child. So that Emma, Jackson, Colton, and Rylan all call me mom. And I'm married to Steve. And if you want to learn more about me, you can go back to that first episode as well. We also have Nate here today. Nate is our producer, and you might hear his voice come out of nowhere.
This is my voice. I know that previous episode has been kind of jarring, so just know I probably won't have a ton to say about motherhood, but if I interject, this is Nate, producer Nate. I also work here and help with this.
And like Nate said, we're talking about motherhood today, not because we think that it's the ultimate purpose for women, but that, or somehow being a mother makes you more important. Just we're acknowledging there's a lot of couples in our church that are having kids. And so it's a conversation that's necessary. And Drew, Austin, and Isaac are having a dad's conversation. So dads, we didn't forget you. There's more for you coming too. We are hoping today to unpack just a few things, start a conversation where our goal here isn't to talk about all things motherhood or answer all parenting questions, but to start a conversation. So I want to encourage you, if you've got things you would like to have us talk about on the podcast, whether it's one of us or somebody else, send emails to podcast@redemptiontc.com. It's in our details of the podcast. You can find that there, and let us know what you'd like us to talk about or what questions you have, and we'll either answer them directly or we'll have another podcast about that. So Kaylie, I want to start with you. What's one thing that you wish someone would have told you before Nora was born?
So I was thinking about this, and I actually received a lot of really good advice before. So I was like, oh, here's one thing that I really liked. But I was trying to think of what I didn't receive. I was like, oh, this was jarring or surprising. And I think the thing that I was thinking about is just how easy it is to compare your baby or your kid to another person's baby or kid. And the times when I was looking at other people's kids and being like, oh, I wish Nora was like that, were the times where I resented motherhood or just were having the hardest times. But when I just accepted, this is the baby and the kid that God gave me, were the times where I was like, oh, I can do that. I don't need to look to the other people and be like, oh, their baby sleeps through the night, and then be super upset about that. If I just accept she's not going to sleep, then I feel better. So, so I don't know, just I guess I should have understood this because it's our sin nature to just want to look to other people and compare and have what we don't have. But I think I was surprised at how quickly that happens and how easy it is to do that, even from such a young age when it's especially things they can't control of when even just like little things like, oh, they walked sooner. It's like, I don't need to compare to other people's babies, but it's like just in my tendency to want to do that. And so I think, like I wish I had just heard like to guard my heart more against that, and to like when those thoughts come in, to bring those to the Lord rather than to like fester on those and like allow them to then like affect my day. Because I feel like, the seasons where I was looking to other people the most are the times where I was like, oh, Nora, why are you like this? It's like, it's not fair to her. She's a baby. Like, And I know that like probably just continues and probably even gets harder and like easier to do as your kids get older. And there are things that are in their control and out of their control, and it's easier to compare. But yeah, definitely. So
And you do such a great job of, I mean, I've seen that because Nora is 14 months and still not sleeping through the night.
That is true.
And you have
that's hard.
And you have such a good attitude about that. And I've seen the ebbs and flows of harder times, but for the most part, I can tell you're like, it is what it is.
Yep.
And I'm just dealing with what I've been given.
Yeah.
And you've had a great attitude about that.
Oh, thanks.
You alluded to like really good advice. Was there one thing that stuck out as this was really good advice?
Yeah. I think maybe you said it to me, but that God gave us Nora, like Joey and I, Nora, and he didn't give Nora different parents or us a different kid. Like he gave us Nora, and we are the only right parents for her because that's who God gave us to parent. And I think just like in the times where it's like, oh, what is happening, or what are we doing, or like there's so many opinions, especially with like we have our phones at our fingertips. It's so easy to be like, ask Google what to do, but Google's not the Holy Spirit. So like having the Spirit like leading us as parents, like we are the ones that get to parent Nora, and she is ours and not someone else's. And it's like actually good that she's our kid, not the like other people in our connection group or other friends in the church. Like she is our baby, not theirs. So.
And even like your parents and other family members, that really good advice and worked well, but it's not Nora.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
And your doctor, helpful, but you know that intuition, you know your child better than anybody. And
definitely. Yeah.
Elle, what do you wish you could go back and tell your younger self?
I think I struggled a lot with extending grace to myself when my ideals of what I wanted to be as a mom didn't play out the way in practical reality I wanted them to. And so like just I remember very, very early I had this great plan of breastfeeding, which I wanted to do because of the health benefits and bonding and all the things. And Sophia hated it, like just did not want to. She loved the bottle because it was faster and easier. And and I just cried and grieved and felt like such a failure and went through this whole rigmarole of emotions about that reality butting up against my ideal. And looking back, I think it was a really good lesson to learn very early, just to say, okay, plans need to be pushed aside, and I just need to prayerfully extend grace to myself, to my husband, to my kids, and just move with where God sends us. And I mean, I don't perfectly do that, but it was, I'm glad that lesson happened early.
Yeah. Can you think of advice that you were given that you like it really resonated and you've carried with you through all of parenting?
Yeah. I'll be interested to hear if Drew ends up saying the same thing because we grew up with the same dad. But I remember my dad talking about how the work of helping your kids develop in character and growing unto the Lord is a journey of their entire childhood. And you can't parent character growth in a 10-minute lesson and expect that change to happen. Like, in the same way that God graciously, slowly, patiently, kindly teaches us lessons, allows us to fail in grace and patience, that I shouldn't try to parent in 10 minutes what God's going to use a lifetime to develop. Because that's the tendency. It's like I see this sin issue or conflict issue that happens, and I start to project it into the future 20 years. And I'm like, if we don't solve this, they're going to hate each other, and you're going to lose all your jobs. And like, I start to like go down this rabbit hole that's just not full of faith and hope.
I mean,
And
it's
so
that borrowing trouble from tomorrow on an extreme level.
yeah, and I think it's rooted partly in sin, but partly in deep care. I really want my kids to be discipled well and to grow into the Lord. But like, that makes me a heavy-handed and not patient and grace-filled mom in a way that I really want to be. So that lesson from my dad, I hang on to that a lot because I often have to go back and apologize. I'm like, okay, like I was heavy-handed in the way that I handled that because I was projecting things into the future that weren't actually here in this moment.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What about you, Jennifer?
Yeah.
It's funny that, because as you said that, I remember my dad, and I have an unusual journey in my relationship with my dad, but having our first was what kind of reconnected us, which was really sweet. So, and he just is a very kind and compassionate person. And two things that he told me, so it wasn't before I had Jackson, it was after I'd had him. One was the we is more important than the me. And remembering that in a lot of different ways, but that helped me make decisions, not in the like what's best for this child, what's best for me, what's best for Steve, but what's best for our family as a whole. Letting those what's best for each of us individually inform that, but not deciding, just not making decisions, dismissing what's best for others. And then the other thing was be quick to forgive. And that lesson has played out as being the most helpful. It's the one thing our oldest has said multiple times. I've learned more from when you messed up than when you did it right, because you came and said you were sorry. And you taught me what it looked like to say, will you forgive me? This is what I did that was wrong. I see it. This is how I'm going to try and do better next time, but will you forgive me today? And he said he's learned more from that than anything we ever did right, which is kind of humbling. And
Totally.
it's like, great, all the things I did well.
Yep.
Totally.
I thought I was doing really good at that, but it wasn't as impactful as when I messed up and owned it. So
I think one of the things that you said, Kaylie, that stood out to me, just talking about the realization of God's gifting Nora to you and you and Joey to Nora as her parents, that is something that I've thought a lot about in our family unit too, just that essentially our family units operate like a mini body of Christ, and that God has gifted us, each other, to more fully reflect and understand who he is, and also to be iron sharpening iron. That Sophia's giftedness is very different from Oliver's and mine and my husband's. And yes, they have elements of Joel and I both, but we also all expose each other's sin, call each other out, have to apologize, and but also we see the good gifts that, like, it's like, well, I don't have that. It could become a comparison thing and create animosity, competition, or it could be something that we see the character of God reflected in each other. And so thinking about really relaxing into the gifts of God, of the specific people and their strengths and weaknesses within our family, as a way that if our eyes are open and our hearts have a humility to them, a posture of humility, that we can learn from each other and grow. It's not just a top-down Joel and I teaching our kids, but we are humbly learning
refined.
from them, being refined all the time.
Yep, children are a great tool of refinement, definitely.
Yep.
Marriage is one, children are another.
Totally.
Totally.
Kaylie, we asked you as a newer mom, because when we asked you to join us for this, you were like,
why?
Yeah, what am I going to talk about? But I think one of the greatest values that you can bring are some questions too. So we asked you to come up with some questions that you wanted to ask of us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I've got lots of questions. Okay, the first that I was thinking about is just like thinking about your guys' own personal walk with Jesus and how that has changed throughout motherhood. Like, what have been the biggest changes you've seen from like first having like a little tiny baby to now? Like, what has the change in your walk with Jesus looked like?
Well, I wasn't a believer when I had our first. So I was working full time. I was an assistant vice president for a real estate investment trust and loved my job and found my identity in that for sure. And after having Jackson, who I nearly died in the process of having him, he then nearly died. And God used that to help me see my priorities were definitely out of balance. And so even though I hadn't come to faith in Jesus yet, I had new priorities and wanted to be home. And that resonated with Steve. And I went back to work and I was like, nope, this isn't, they're going to fire me. I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. I want to be home. And so that was the beginning of a change. And then practically I spent those first couple of years trying to figure out where the other moms were, how to get engaged, and found myself involved in a parachurch organization. And from the time he was 2 to 5, I just devoured my Bible and grew in being a disciple and learning how to disciple other women and learn to love studying the Bible. And so my walk with Jesus changed a lot. But I also would say there was that initial coming to know who Jesus was through the study of Matthew. And in Matthew, I saw Jesus as my best friend. And then we went to the Old Testament and the life of Moses. And instead I saw this holy God, the creator and ruler of the universe. And that approval seeking part of me leaned into that. And so I think I saw Jesus as someone I needed to fight for for his approval. And I needed to live in a way that he would find me acceptable. And over the years, a lot through parenting and the humility of needing to recognize that I couldn't earn that, I came to understand that he loved me before I ever knew who he was. And it wasn't because of anything within me. And I could rest in him and actually found him instead of what I needed to strive for approval in, but I could find him as my source of identity and strength and wisdom. So that's the fastest answer I can come up with on a very long journey.
Yes.
What would you say?
Well, I was thinking while you were answering, and so many lessons, it's hard to focus on a concise one, but I would say it was an identity crisis followed by the gracious reset from the Lord, because Joel and I waited 8 years to get pregnant. And so 9 years into our marriage, we had Sophia. I was well established in my career and knew that I had a default of really finding identity in career and was trying to to fight against that. But then this new factor of motherhood and where suddenly I didn't know what I was doing and felt like things were not going to plan. And I had more of a sense of control of other aspects of my life that I'd kind of worked out. And I think that God just thwamped that all. And it was just you don't actually, you thought you had control, but really you had great performance and just really undoing things. And I think the reality of the word being living and active and sharper than a double-edged sword, and just the idea that I found that in our lives, the word doesn't change, but our circumstances and we change. And so the way that God experientially ministers to us through his living word touches us when we enter new places and new realities, and motherhood was so brand new. And I felt like I had a lot figured out, and God was like, no, you don't. Let's have a fresh heart, fresh eyes to know me differently and just humble yourself before me. So it just felt like kind of starting from square one in some ways, with just an attitude of learning and humility.
Yeah. Thinking about I feel like those early days, especially when you're thrown into you have this new baby that you're all of a sudden you've never had to take care of another human 24/7, 365. And God humbles you really well in that. But how did that season of just kind of being humbled and having your identity totally reshift it, or reshift?
Yeah,
that's not the right word, but reshape. Thank you. How did that practically draw you near to the Lord? And what did like your daily life look like to not then try and take that on yourself and like just make that another thing that you could be perfect at, but to then like bring that to the Lord and realize that you don't have control.
I did not make up this quote, but I've heard it said that marriage reveals how sinful you are and parenthood reveals how selfish you are. And that was a reality for me. Just, I remember those early days of sleepless nights and getting up and not wanting to get up and feeling angry that Joel was snoring away. And here I am getting up and trying and failing to breastfeed again, and just like feeling so exhausted, and it didn't feel like my body was cooperating with what I wanted to do, and just being like, what am I doing? And like, I want to sleep, and just feeling like my time wasn't my own. And so I think that spotlight on my selfishness and the call to self-sacrifice and selflessness in motherhood was kind of that jarring like identity shift that needed to happen. I have not fully lived into that at all times now, but just like the realization that like the call is an ongoing self-sacrifice for the sake of your kids and your family. It's me last, not me first in decision making. And
And there's a balance to that too. We were talking a little bit about like soul care and the importance of that. And the analogy rings true of like putting like the airplane instructions, put your own oxygen mask on first. And we do need to care for ourselves in order to have anything to give our families, anything of value to give to our families and children, which is really hard, I think, especially as a mom, because like you said, in those early days, and I mean, the first year, your child is, for the most part, dependent on you for life. Yeah, totally. And like in your situation, like Nora, she doesn't do well away from you. And so even more so, like how many minutes a day do you get to yourself?
I don't know. A few when she goes to bed.
Not many.
Because even like making dinner, she's like, oh, hold me. So yeah, definitely. That is something that I've been thinking about is like I feel like our culture is like really big on like self-care, like take care of yourself. And it's like, yes, we do need to take care of ourselves. We can't just like deplete ourselves so much that we're like in the drain and can't take care of our families. But also we can't like put ourselves first because it is like motherhood is selfless and like that is the call on our lives as moms and just as Christians too. It's like we are called to be selfless and to like love others. It's not just a motherhood. Yes, it's not just a motherhood call. And so like what is it? How do you find the balance of like caring for your soul and making sure that you are being filled up enough to like be able to care for your family well, and not falling into the ditch of just like, oh, me first, self-care, but also not falling into the other ditch of like, oh, I don't matter at all.
Right.
It's, like how do you guys find the balance in that?
That's, I feel like, such a different answer depending on the stage of life that your kids are in. Yeah. Because that, like how that plays out for me right now looks so different than it would in the early days. Because there is just, my kids are not very dependent on me. Yeah. I mean, you and I were just talking and we were out of town for the weekend and they took care of themselves and got themselves where they needed to go and fed themselves and invited their older brother and sister-in-law over and made them dinner.
I'm like, hashtag goals.
Yeah. I'm like, best children ever.
I know. I'm like, they really don't need us. So it's definitely different, but I would trying to look back to where like that season of life that you're in with wisdom. I would say having people in your life that are speaking truth to you that can see and kind of be that barometer for you because you're in the thick of it so much. It's hard to recognize when you're giving away too much of yourself or you're becoming embittered or you're becoming selfish or whatever that might be. And sometimes your spouse can be, I mean, your husband can definitely be a big part of that and be a super helpful indicator of what you need to be doing differently and how to care for yourself. I think the biggest thing is that recognizing our complete dependence on Jesus and not setting unrealistic expectations on ourselves.
That's good.
I think, I mean, I remember when the twins were like early new home from the NICU and I think we were on, they weren't up to birth, like a normal birth weight yet. So they were still under 7 pounds, and I was having to nurse them, and they were preemies. So nursing took forever. So it was like, they needed to be fed every 3 hours, but it took nearly an hour to feed them.
Oh yeah.
And so I was like 3 hours from when I start feeding them or 3 hours from when they're done eating. It was just, I felt like they were taking, like that was my life, was
And
just
there's two
trying
of
to literally keep them alive. And I just remember having Bibles open around the house by diaper changing, like anywhere I had diapers, I had a Bible open, and it was one verse that I tried to get through in a week. And I finally was like, okay, I'm just going to memorize that verse. And when I got it memorized, then I would move on to another verse, and learning to let that be enough, and learning that this wasn't a time where I was going to be studying my Bible, and this wasn't a time where I was going to be unpacking large passages of scripture or understanding a book of the Bible in its entirety. It was, I just needed my own daily bread and worship music. The other thing that was super helpful in that season was Jesus Storybook Bible. We had it. I'm dating myself, on CDs. And it had soothing background music. So it was a calming thing for the babies, but it also was, I was getting the word in my own heart and mind, and it was calming for me.
Yeah.
So just letting that be enough helped me a lot. So having realistic expectations of myself, having a strong community of people to say, you need a break. And I have the most amazing mother-in-law, the most wonderful mother-in-law. And she would come over and she would do the middle of the night feeding, so I could just get up and pump and go right back to sleep. And she would sleep on our couch, and she would do that probably once or twice a week, just so I could get
that's so
much
kind.
sleep. I know. And that was huge. And there was a part of me that was like, no, I should be able to do this. And I was like, no, I need help. And being okay with saying I need help helped a lot.
That's really good.
I think you mentioned worship music, and I would say one thing about soul care is finding ways to layer in thinking about and having your heart pointed to Jesus that work for you.
Yeah.
Bibles around the house. I didn't do that, but I listened to podcasts or worship music and just tried to have what I was choosing to watch or fill my heart with be pointing to Jesus. And most of the time I couldn't listen to a whole anything in one sitting, but it was just peppered throughout
bits here and
the
there.
day. And then I'm extroverted. So to me, being around people, especially having been a teacher and I was surrounded by people all the time, to being home alone with the baby all day for the the first year while I was exploring that option, I felt so isolated. And so for me, getting involved in a couple different, like a MOPS group, a Bible study, to just have that fellowship was so helpful. And then like getting out of the house, it sometimes feels like barrier to exit, not barrier to entry, barrier to exit the house just feels really hard because you have to get all the contraptions, the strollers, the wipes, the everything that you could possibly need. But like, it was so worth it to just breathe fresh air and have it be a practice of like prayerful walking. Like it didn't mean the entire like 45 minutes that I was like praying solid, but just like peppered in prayer and just having those things, like making room and space in my time to layer the mundane with the spiritual and have my eyes lifted off of my circumstances and my tiredness and myself heavenward.
Yeah.
There's so much power in a walk.
So much.
Even in
The fresh
Minnesota,
air,
in the cold, it's so worth it. That's like my biggest advice to young parents is get a good stroller. It makes such a difference because it's hard to navigate finding date time. But putting the baby in the stroller and getting out for a walk, often they are very content and you get fresh air, you get exercise, and you guys can talk. And in a husband and wife relationship, you know, guys like shoulder to shoulder activity, women like more relational, and you actually get all of those things in a walk. So, yeah.
We've also found Nora doesn't love strollers all the time because she loves to be held. But baby carriers are really helpful. So investing in a good one of those or like borrowing from other people to find a good one. Because then you can like, I don't know, I find a lot of life in being like in nature, not just like, oh, we're out on a walk by our city streets, but like going to Lebanon Hills and like actually going for a walk in the trails. Harder when it's icy with a baby. But yeah, in like the summer and stuff, just getting out in fresh air. And something I've realized recently, I was telling Jennifer about this recently, but just eating enough food. It seems so easy. It's like so difficult.
And the right food, like fuel your
Yes.
body well. And don't beat
Yes.
yourself up if you're grabbing, whatever chips or whatever
Yeah.
in a moment, but like make sure that there's good food to give you the
Yes.
energy you need.
Yeah, don't just eat the leftovers of your kid's plate as your
Yes,
entire
yes.
sustenance.
Because I was like, oh, I'm eating plenty. I eat like a few meals and a snack, but it's like if you're like breastfeeding, like there's so much nutrients going to
Yeah.
that baby and not to you.
Yeah.
Your body's smart in prioritizing that baby, and so
Yeah.
I found that recently. I'm like, whoa, I have so much energy. I'm just eating right. Oh, taking my supplements I'm supposed to be doing. Okay, but yeah, that's great. I guess kind of going along with like, there are just like you'd mentioned like marriage. Just like different expectations, but also like you can go on a walk and like date night might look different, but like you can still go on those walks. What does that look like for you guys throughout the different seasons? Like thinking about little babies, but also to now, like I feel like it's easy to, at least in my season, be like, oh, when they're older, it'll be so much easier, but it's like they will just have different requirements. So what does that look like for you guys to prioritize your marriage, and how has that changed and shifted your like expectations or priorities like as your kids have gotten older?
Yeah. One of the things I encourage couples to do is remember the rule of 2. Try not to go more than 2 weeks without one-on-one time, date time. But when I say date time, I don't mean like get dressed up and you've got a babysitter to come over and you go out. Like for us, date time has looked different in different seasons. There was a stretch where with the baby, it was like, all right, we're intentionally making sure baby gets to bed, and we're going to have like a normal dinner, the two of us with no distractions, and we're going to spend time together. There was a season where my grandma would come over and we would close our door before we left, and we would leave and go get takeout and climb in our bedroom window.
That's amazing.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's so funny.
And, I mean, the kids figured it out eventually, but there was a stretch where we'd be there, but they didn't know we were home.
That's so funny.
So hold that loosely.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be this standard that you're setting, but it's a matter of prioritizing. So try not to go more than 2 weeks without having one-on-one time, date time together. And then try not to go more than 2 months without a night away. And that might mean a night out. It might mean, it just kind of depends, and be flexible, but try like intentionality in that. And then try not to go more than 2 years without a week away together. Because Lord willing, your kids are only going to be guests in your home for about 2/3, or a third of your marriage. So your marriage is the greater priority.
Yeah.
And I don't know, everybody says it, but the best gift you can give your kids is a healthy marriage. And
Yeah.
that's what we've seen consistently, that our kids really enjoy. Like, they tease us, but we love each other a lot. And they're like, gross, stop it. And I'll say, isn't Dad handsome? And Rylan will go, sure.
That's awesome.
But I want her to see that I love him and that I view him highly.
Yeah.
And I don't want her to just think that whatever it goes on within our marriage happens behind closed doors, but that we love each other in front of them. And they're a part of that.
Yeah,
but
that's cool.
Also, Steve has prioritized when he gets home, he's like, I love you guys, but where's Mom? Like, that's my first person I want to see. There was a time where it was like kids would come and run. He's like, no, I got to hug Mom first. And I was like, just hug them. Get them out of the way.
Totally.
Because we can't hug. Because someone had told us once, like, make sure you greet Mom first. And I think there's wisdom in that, but don't be legalistic in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are some of the things I think of. How about you, Elle?
I love the wisdom that you just spoke into about the twos, the rules of 2. We didn't do that. And looking back, I think that would have been really good wisdom for us to follow younger. We've always lived until very recently out of state from family. And so we just didn't have people that could watch our kids, and financially babysitters are expensive, and we couldn't afford regular babysitters. And most of our time that was vacation time, we came to visit family. So the whole like getting away together, I think in our entire marriage, Joel and I have gone on 3 trips, and we've been married 21 years. So it's just, that hasn't been our rhythm. But one of the things that we prioritize quality time in going on walks and as a family quality time, and then try to have, when the kids go to bed, Joel and I are up another hour or so, and that we talk to each other. We spend time together. But another thing that just for us has really worked is, as far as career is concerned, Joel has always prioritized a career that allows for a lot of time with our family at home. Like, he's a teacher, and when we moved from Indiana to Minnesota, he had been in a position that was very, very demanding as the head of an entire band program, marching band. It was super intense, and he did an excellent job at it, but just decided it really took away from our time in our marriage and our time with our kids. And so he's had opportunities to do more intense jobs here, but he's chosen to be a middle school band director because it allows him to have a really good flexible schedule without as many extracurriculars. And so the need to like get away and have time that we carve out where we aren't together, I guess doesn't feel as pronounced as it once did, because Joel comes home around 4 regularly. I work from home. We play family games and go on walks and spend quite a bit of time just doing things together as a family, as the regular rhythm of our lives. And so I don't feel like I'm suffering for time, but we also gross our kids out with like talking about how much we love each other. And I won't go into the details here, but just they both are middle schoolers. So they're having conversations about stuff in school about physical, and they're totally grossed out by learning that about us. And so we lean into that and think it's hilarious. But I think I don't know that this is a motherhood topic per se, but even the way that I try to speak about Joel to my kids and talk about like why I fell in love with him and why he, I think, is such an excellent father and a spouse, and how I hope that my son will become a man like him and a father and husband like him. And I hope that my daughter will find a husband who loves Jesus and loves her like Joel does. And so just trying to show our kids in the way that we love each other in front of them and talk about each other to them, that we're honoring and prioritizing our marriage.
Yeah,
that's
I
really
think
cool.
that's really, really foundational in how you speak about them, but also how you disagree in front of them. Like, because like you can't always wait till later to have the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
I had somebody tell me once when our kids were younger that a great way to ask, to let someone, like let your spouse know that you want to say no, or you have said no, is to say, Jackson wants to know if it's okay if he does this. And that was my way of saying, I would say no, but like
that's
you
smart.
speak into
That's
it.
really smart.
Just so that there's this united front that's being communicated. And it gets harder as they get older because you're confronting things you haven't confronted before. I mean, parenting in the early years, you kind of are on the same page. It's pretty simple and you know what's coming at you. And then you hit the early teen years and the teenage years and all bets are off and you just don't know. So it's sometimes helpful to have a strategy. And we just learned to say, Mom and I are going to need to talk about that. Dad and I need to talk about that. You need to give us some time. And then let that happen so that if we didn't agree, there wasn't a major disagreement in front of them, because we didn't want them to figure out, okay, well, if I want this, I go to this parent. If I want this, I go to this parent. And then there's triangulation happening. And so,
and they'll still try.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Can attest they will try.
And even in a positive way, there are certain things that Colton was having some car trouble and he's like, I'm calling Mom. Because I tend to just react a little bit more calmly when it's a stressful situation. Whereas Steve hears thousands of dollars, like he hears dollar signs
right
when one of the kids calls with a car problem. He's like, what? What happened? Whereas I'm like, okay, talk me through it. What's going on? And so they've learned some of those things too. So some of it is just learning your family dynamic. But
Definitely. Oh, that's awesome. Oh my goodness. Yeah. All the things to look forward to. Nora can't pit us against each other yet. So
well,
yeah.
She definitely prefers you.
Yeah, that is true. Okay, kind of switching gears. I was just thinking, we were talking a little bit earlier of like, there's a lot of information in today's world from like well-meaning people, from the internet, from ChatGPT, from all the things. What does it look like to like discern what is good information, what's helpful, and what is not right for either you or your kids or your family. And like, how do you discern that when, especially I think it's easier online to see that maybe, but when it's from people in our community, like it's people at church that are like sharing something on a Sunday morning, it's like, oh, do this, this will work. How do you discern out the information that like what is good for our family, what's not?
That's a great question. I think recently at church we talked about conscience issues. Maybe it wasn't that recently, but I feel like we keep coming back to it because it's so helpful. Yeah. And I think you go back to Romans 12:1-2 talks about being transformed by the renewing of your mind through the word. And so we need to first and foremost be formed by God's word on a regular basis and trust the Holy Spirit dwelling within us, and take those pieces of information and process with your spouse. Okay, this is the issue or challenge that I'm facing. This was the recommendation somebody gave me. And then ask the Lord to give you wisdom. And there's a lot of trial and error in parenting. I mean, it sounds terrible. We're figuring it out. We're trying things with a child, with a human life, but that is what it is. Yeah. First pancake. Yep. But trusting that the Holy Spirit will guide you in that, and being okay with getting it wrong sometimes. I know, like, we've talked a lot about, like, as your kids get older, what to do for school decisions. And obviously at one season in my life, I had one child in all the different school options. So I clearly do not believe that there is only one right way. Yeah. But there are camps out there that do, at well-meaning, and there are a lot of really good options. Yeah. That doesn't mean it's what's right for you or your child in that season. And you have to work through that. And yeah, I don't know how helpful. I don't feel like I gave you a very clear answer. I'll fix it. Take all of that and turn it into something helpful.
I think first remembering that who are we accountable to for our decision making? And we're accountable to Jesus, and we're accountable to our spouse, to be godly in the way that we respect and decision make with them, that no one person is unilaterally making decisions. And we're accountable to the body of Christ in seeking wisdom, but with issues of conscience. I think the question of, is this decision, is it prayerful? Does it align with scriptural direction? Because of course we know what things are in the area of sin directly or not sin directly, but a lot of the others, like you mentioned, Jennifer, are issues of conscience. But then some of it is just personality, getting to know your child, getting to know you and your spouse, and how you're going to function. And I think the litmus test then becomes like, we do know the revealed will of God. We think that we don't know the will of God because he hasn't given us flashing signs in the sky that says homeschool, public school. But the revealed will of God is that we would all grow in character. And we know what that looks like. The growing in character is the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. So looking at our decision making, is this bringing peace? Is this bringing joy in my family and my child? Is this suffocating them? And the answers to those questions, like, is this producing godly character or is it not? Is it somehow hindering the character of myself and my family? Then it needs to be reevaluated and reevaluated pretty regularly, because the way that you make a decision when a kid is 5 versus when they're 13, like the same things that produced progress and character at one stage have to be adjusted later in order to help facilitate their further growth and my further growth. And so I think just evaluating our fruit, like what's really being produced in my individual life, in my kids' life, in our marriage, and if the fruit is rotten, what needs to change? Is it a heart issue, or is it a circumstance issue that I have control of? To use an example, I think of, like, my sister-in-law Melissa and I are very different in personality, and what brings her life and helps her operate and function in a way that she feels fully healthy. She loves lists and schedules, and her house she's cleaning constantly, which that's wonderful. Like, I kind of get twitchy when I think about living under the way that she feels really fruitful. Like to me, it feels like just another checklist that I can't accomplish, and just like this sense of perfectionism that's like weighing down on me. And so I tend to be, well, probably Melissa would be like, I don't know how you function so loosey-goosey. I'm always like, I don't know what we're doing. Like, I don't know where my calendar is. Oh, I do know where it is, but I haven't looked at it, you know? And so but I tend to kind of operate a little bit more fluidly. Because I like being more spontaneous, and I don't have 5 kids. I have 2 kids, which is a little bit easier to manage. And so it's just, I think like if I tried to function within the fruit bearing that Melissa has, it wouldn't produce the same fruit. And so I think that that's where scripture extends a lot of grace with issues of conscience. It's we are asked to evaluate whether we're growing in godly character, but not be prescriptive in the how.
Right.
Yeah.
And comparing, the comparison is with my former self, like who I was yesterday. It's not with who Ellen is. I don't compare.
Yeah.
Like, am I the same kind of mom that Ellen is? No. Am I growing in godly character in my mothering compared to who I was yesterday?
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. And I think of too, like going back to the comparison that we talked about earlier, but also as you were talking about that, what's producing fruit in our children, but also what's producing fruit in us. It's going back to my dad's advice of the we is more important than the me. And because we had to make a hard decision at one point and stop an activity for one of our kids that they loved, we loved, and wanted to keep doing. But we felt this really strong conviction that we needed to pull back from it and didn't know all of the whys yet. And it was a hard decision to stop. And then going into that next fall, we started to understand the whys. My best friend's husband was diagnosed with cancer. They lived in Des Moines, and all of a sudden Steve is driving back and forth to Des Moines on a regular basis to help care for him and to support them. And had Jackson remained in hockey, he would not, Steve had been coaching, and that would not have been possible. And additionally, Steve stepped out of leading in Bible study fellowship, which is a very good thing, but he had this strong conviction that it was time for him to take a break. And we didn't know the why, but we knew that it was the right thing. And it ended up being the very best thing for our entire family, because had those two things continued, he either wouldn't have been able to be there for Galen and walk through that season with him, or he never would have been home with us and the kids. So it ended up, while hard decisions, ended up being the right thing.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think even thinking about like how you brought it back to comparison of, we're not called to look to everyone around us and see like, oh, I need my life to look just like theirs. But what does it mean for my family to like follow the Lord and really be like cognizant of the Spirit in us to follow that and like let that lead us, not let the person next door lead us. And I think with social media, that can be really hard to like kind of block out that noise and see like, well, also you always see the best, you know, like you don't see the meltdowns on social media. You don't see the like tantrums or the things that are like, I don't know, any of the
dishes
issues
piled up in the sink.
Yes.
The bathroom that hasn't been cleaned in 3 weeks.
Yeah, totally. All you're seeing is like, oh, they went on this amazing family trip or whatever. And like, oh, their babies are always smiling or things like that. It's like, well, everyone knows that's not true.
Right.
So I think, that's just like a really helpful way to think about it, is like, where is the Spirit leading me and my family? Not what does it look like this family is doing really well and I need to copy everything they're doing to produce the same things, because it wouldn't. Like, exactly what you're saying. It's like it wouldn't produce the same fruit because we're different people and have different kids and a different husband, and
it likely would produce rotten fruit. Yeah, because you're striving for something that God hasn't called you to.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Nate, how are we doing on time?
We're at 48 minutes.
All right, Kaylie, do you have one more question for us before we wrap up?
That's so much pressure.
I'm sorry.
Okay. In thinking about motherhood as like thinking about self-care, soul care, but also like taking care of our kids and like having that. How does it look to have like personal ambition, or even like not ambition, but just like personal interests,
hobbies,
or like pursuits, and like not I guess, quote unquote, like losing yourself in motherhood. Cause I feel like maybe that's like the terminology I hear from culture is like, oh, I lost myself to motherhood. And I think there is like nuance in that of like, we should change. Like we shouldn't be the same as what we were before. Like God is calling us into something better in motherhood and like is trying to grow us. So we shouldn't change, but how do you not like quote unquote
should change?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Did I say shouldn't?
Yes.
Oh,
I know what you meant though.
Yeah, it's not that.
Totally know what you meant.
Yeah. How do you not like lose yourself, but still like, are you able to like pursue your own personal hobbies or interests and like, but also not let that come in the way of your family and like get in the way of being the mom that they need? Sorry, that was a rambly question.
No, it's such a good and valid question.
Yeah.
I would say, similar to my last answer, it's seasonal, it's personal, and it's also something that you have to evaluate with your spouse. Because I think that some hobbies are really time consuming and really expensive. I would put career within the same category. Like, do you keep working? Do you not keep working? Sometimes it's a desire question. Sometimes it's a financial decision. Sometimes it's both, you know? And the question of what investments of my time, energy, and money are going to further the deeper calling to show up well in my marriage and my motherhood. And I mentioned earlier that when Sophia was born, I stayed home for the first, I was a teacher at the time and she was born in October. So I taught the first quarter and then I took the rest of the year and the summer off. Because I was asking the question, what would it look like to be a stay-home mom? Both my mom and my mother-in-law were stay-at-home moms and just wanted to consider that question. Well, the following summer, after Joel getting home from work regularly, and I already mentioned I was involved in Bible studies, I was going on walks and like doing all the things, and poor Joel would get home from work every day and I'd be like, talk to me, talk to that. Like, and I just like felt like probably my biggest gifting is in teaching, whether it shows up in a secular or spiritual setting. I love putting big ideas together and creating order and then conveying them in a way that's then life-giving and inspiring to other people. And I just didn't have an outlet to do that, especially with an infant. They weren't prepared to rise up and call me blessed at that time. Still aren't yet. That's the hope. But
they do that at some point?
No, right, hopefully. Maybe when they're 22. That was when I was like, Mom, you were actually smart. But Joel came home. Like, we had this conversation. I have a vivid memory of it. I was holding Sophia and trying to, like, we're having this conversation. I was like, I don't know. Do I stay home? And Joel was just so sweet. He goes, Ellen, I think that it would be better for all of us if you would go back to work. Like, I think that you would come home healthier and happier and be more able to give and not feel so depleted. And, you know, there have been different seasons in my life where being involved in a choir, because I love to sing, was feasible. And right now it's not. I hope to someday do that again. I worked out of the home and now I work from home because seasonally that works best for our family. It allows me to show up really well and be available in the way that's life-giving. But yeah, I think that same kind of essential question is what I'm investing time and treasure in facilitating me to show up in a way that is healthy and life-giving for my family. And if not, then that hobby or thing probably needs to go, because the calling of motherhood trumps other hobbies and
definitely,
and your marriage does.
And maybe it's for a season.
Yeah, it's seasonal.
Yeah. I think losing yourself in motherhood is a part of those early days in that first year or so. That's just probably the best way to describe it, because it's all consuming and your life drastically changes.
Yeah, total recalibration.
Yep, totally. Yeah, and it needs to. And then after, as your child becomes a little bit more independent, you gain a little more of your independence back. And so it's not that you're finding yourself again, it's that your circumstances have changed and you have a little bit more freedom. And so understanding it that way. But I think the important thing is to remember our identity is first in Christ. Our role is first as a daughter of the King. And then second of all, it's wife to our husband. And then third, it's mother to our children.
That's really good.
And remembering that order is really important. And that they fuel each other, but it's foundational to start with that role as a child of God and remembering that first. And then being flexible, like Ellen said, with your priorities. I mean, Steve loves to golf, but there was a season with all the kids at home and our financial situation, it just didn't allow for it. I think he didn't golf for, I don't know, 12 years and he made that decision for our family because it was the right thing. The golf takes a lot of time and we hit a point where it wasn't feasible, and he had chosen other hobbies and that was what he chose. And I think that as parents, that's okay. And he's back golfing a lot again and loving it, which is great.
That's awesome.
And the boys are starting to golf with him, which I love. So I think figuring out what is right for your family. And I don't want anyone to hear that and think if their husband is golfing, that's a bad thing. That's not what I'm saying.
It was a decision within your family.
Coming from a golfer husband over here.
You were the driver of that. I was like, wait, I'm not saying Nate shouldn't be golfing. What I'm saying is not prescriptive. I'm just saying for our family, that was a good example of something that just needed to give in that season. And it allowed Steve to do other things. So that doesn't mean it needs to be that way for everybody, but understanding that, like Ellen said, if your spouse is going, I can't do this alone, I feel like a single parent, I need more of your time, or your kids need more, our kids need more of the time, then that's probably a conversation worth having.
I also think what you guys mentioned of it's seasonal is really helpful to remember, because I think when you're in it, at least I've noticed this, like pre 6 months where Nora couldn't like eat any food, it was like, oh my goodness, will she ever leave me? Like, will she ever be able to be watched by someone else? Cause she like refuses bottles and it's a whole thing. But like, I'm just like, it's a season. Like in that season, I was like, this is never going to end. It'll never get better. But now it's better. And so it's like, I think that's really helpful to remember, because when you're in it, you don't always realize that this is a season, and it kind of feels like this is going to be my forever. And so remembering like it's a season in the hard things, but it's also a season for like what you get to do or what you choose to do differently. And like one choice now, whether that's a hobby or a school choice or staying home or not, doesn't mean this is for the rest of my life. It means this is for this season, and then we can reevaluate and figure out going forward, like what does that look like for in whatever context you're thinking about it in. So that's really helpful just to wrap up the whole thing. I feel like it's all seasonal, and like the Lord has the Holy Spirit in each of us to guide our families to what we need to do for that season. So,
and that's true on the positive and the negative. Like right now, she won't go to sleep without being in your arms, but my kids don't need me to tuck them in anymore.
That is what's getting me through. Is I don't know any adult that needs to be rocked to sleep in the middle of the night 6 times. So,
but also there's I don't know the last, like, I didn't know it was the last time I was going to rock them to sleep. And it's gone. So, so the seasons, there's positive to the seasonal changes. And then there's also the, like, enjoy it while you're there. Find the good. We talk a lot about this, the comparison thing, but if you're focused on these are the gifts in this season, you'll enjoy them more. You'll have, like you said at the beginning, you'll have a better attitude, and then you'll look back on them with more joy instead of looking back on them with bitterness.
Well, and it's interesting. Just I mentioned singing in the choir, which that was the thing that I loved to do, and I actually did it for a few years when my kids were toddlers because they wanted to be around me all the time, and having a break where I was just doing something that was with adults and that was life-giving that I loved was something that was an escape hatch that Joel wanted to give me, and that was wonderful for me. Now my kids don't need me, and also don't desire to spend a lot of time with me. So I probably could go and sing in a choir, but I want to be available because the whims of when they want to talk, I want to be there so that I'm just present. So it's a choice that, like, I think if I was like, Joel, I really want to join that chorale that I've found and blah, 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 he would be supportive, but it's like, no, right now, being available in the unpredictable of my teens' needs and emotions is the priority.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
other people may not decide those things, but that's where Joel and I have landed. And so I know that like we count the years that we have left with our kids now. It's not very many. And so just kind of making the strategic decision as a couple that neither of us really have hobbies outside of being involved with church things. We just don't, because we want to be super available to be involved in church and super available for our kids, knowing that the time is short.
It is. Yep.
Yeah.
The days are long, but the years are short. Yeah. Well, thank you ladies both so much for being here. I just want to remind everybody that our goal was the beginning of a conversation. We weren't trying to wrap everything up. One of the things that I can point you to in April of this year, 2026, we're going to be doing 5 Wednesday mornings in April, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. Redemption women are going to gather and have some teaching and community building. And so I want to invite all of you women to that. And I also just want to encourage you, like we said at the onset, motherhood isn't the highest calling. It is a high calling, and it definitely is a part of who we are. But if you are not a mom or not yet a mom, Isaiah 54 says, "Sing, O barren one, and do not break forth into singing and cry aloud, for you have not been in labor. For the children of the desolate one will be more than the children of her who is married." And I just want to encourage you that spiritual motherhood is just as valuable, if not more than valuable. All of us we're here and we have this bond together in Christ because of that unity that we share, not because we have children. It's because of who we are in Jesus.
Yeah.
And so we all have that. So I just want to encourage any woman who's listening that you are loved and you are valued, and that there is a place for you to serve and love within our church, not just for those of you who are having babies. So thanks so much for being with us. Hope you guys are doing well. Take care.